and welcome to Great Getaways. Well, it's not winter yet, but as you can tell from all these leaves on the ground, it's not far away. And to get things going, we're going to take you to some of our favorite trips from the past. It was a time when my hair was a little darker and I probably had a little bit more of it, but we were going to beautiful places we're going to take you back to today when we travel across Michigan's Upper Peninsula.
Production of Great Getaways is made possible by Rocky's Great Outdoors. Located in Burton, Michigan, Rocky's carries a complete line of motorcycles, snowmobile, camping, and hiking gear, including canoes and kayaks. State Building Company, serving Mid-Michigan for over 50 years, with quality windows, insulation, roofing, and siding, including complete residential and commercial remodeling. Forward Corporation, operating over 30 complete convenience centers, motels, and restaurants across Northeast Michigan.
If there's anything more reliable than an Upper Peninsula winter, then we haven't heard about it. We say reliable because regardless of the UP location, snow, and we mean lots of it, blankets the ground, providing a winter wonderland.
As we started off across the frozen lake, the only sound would be the long, wailing cry of our snowmobiles. Being a way of life for the people who live here, with many years of experience, they have marked the safest way of passage with a series of discarded Christmas trees. Without the markings, that path would be treacherous. Tom and Mike would take this trip with confidence because their guide would be a man who makes this trip daily to and from work on snowmobile, just as you or I would drive our car. As they continue to the island, the Mackinac Bridge looms in the background, bigger than life. It is a look and feel that you can only experience in winter. When we arrived on the island, the landscape changed and the view was different, but the beauty was still breathtaking. Sleigh bells ring. Are you listening? It's a part of life to those who call Mackinac Island home. If you ask 10 different people, what do you like best about winter on Mackinac Island, you'll probably get 10 different answers. A young person might tell you winter is great because of snowmobiles, whereas an adult will be more apt to tell you they enjoy the chance to relax a bit and visit with friends and relatives after a hectic season. Most people, however, would agree that the peace and solitude that the winter beauty of Mackinac brings is what makes this such a special time of year. If you can, come up. See the island covered in a blanket of clean white snow, Christmas lights on trees and homes, sleigh bells on the horses, and of course, many snowmobiles roaring around. The talking was over, and it was time to start exploring the aftermath of the evening's blow. Since early morning, everyone had been promising some beautiful sights. The fresh snow from the storm had fallen, leaving everything with that perfect winter look. We knew just moments into the ride that the promises would all be kept. It wasn't too long before we again came to Lake Superior. The Great Sand Bay is a location we have visited countless times during the warm weather months, but on this day it gained a new look altogether. The snow-covered sand dunes now seemed endless. It was one seamless blanket from water's edge to highest tree. We could also see that the lake was still churning with the winds that had brought the storm. We couldn't wait to get down to the lake level and see some of the surf. And it wouldn't take long. From our overlook, it was just a few short miles and all downhill to the historic village of Eagle Harbor. We stopped at one of the best vantage points to enjoy the water and this village's most famous attraction, the Eagle Harbor Lighthouse. We could hear the waves crashing, and we knew it would be a sight to see. The group took the long walk to the observation area, ever careful of the snow and ice. It was worth it. We've seen Lake Superior in meaner spirits, but these waves had an interesting quality about them, both calming and frightful at the same time, icy, deadly cold, yet capable of providing that warm inner glow as you watch the breaking surf. The lake would be with us for the better part of the day now, and we took every opportunity to enjoy some of its interesting shots. Just to the north of Eagle Harbor, we stopped to watch the waves cover the rocks along the bay. Undaunted, we continued north to Copper Harbor. Across the icy bay stands the Copper Harbor Lighthouse. This historic building hosts tourists during the summer as a boat cruise takes visitors out to the point for a close-up look. Over the past century, 3 different lights have stood watch over this stretch of Lake Superior, another reminder of the importance of Great Lakes shipping and the danger of Keweenaw waters. Another historical member of the Copper Harbor area is Fort Wilkins, a state park in its own right and a participating member of the Keweenaw National Historic Park. Fort Wilkins housed United States troops from 1844 to 1846. The park features many restored buildings and demonstrations of frontier life in the mid-19th century. The park is only open to the public from May through October, but these shots can show you why Fort Wilkins didn't last long as an outpost. Simply put, this was the end of the world to the young soldiers garrisoned here. Cold, hostile, far from loved ones, completely isolated throughout the winter, morale was low and desertion ran high. Fort Wilkins is truly one of our country's most interesting stories in the pages of military history, and the preserved and restored attraction today is one of Michigan's unique attractions. On our way, the trail cuts and winds through the pristine forest, over bridges and past cabins until it finally comes to the Eagle's Nest, so called for obvious reasons. Even though we did not see an eagle, it didn't dampen the feeling of being at the headwaters of the Tequamanon River, leading eventually to Tequamanon Falls. This bright winter's morning was giving us a wonderful backdrop for enjoying one of nature's wonders. The golden waters glistened in the sun, and the snow gleamed bright wherever it had been dusted. As we admired the views from every possible angle, Jim pointed out some ice floes approaching the falls, and we waited to experience a new spectacle from these falls that have already provided so many memorable moments over the years. While one larger float perched precariously across the brink, others washed over the edge, crashing to pieces along the way down. Their broken chunks were churned under the open water at the base of the falls. And too soon, this show of nature was over.
As we stand down here and overlook the falls, I keep thinking back about the first time I came here. At that time I came up with my family. I was just a kid. We walked a dirt trail back here. There was some railroad ties, a little stairway that came down. There were none of the decking that's out here now, so you walk right up next to the river itself. Since then, it's changed a lot. It's made much easier, and it's much safer too. But as many times as I've come here, it's always different. It's always beautiful. It's always worth a walk back here. I've never been disappointed yet, and I don't expect to ever be disappointed. I think it's something that everybody should come back to. It's something that the whole family can do. There's an easy trail back, and there's a nice parking lot up there to park in. So any time of the year, come on up and come on down to the Tequamanon River and to the Tequamanon Falls. You won't be disappointed here.
The next day would start on a sunny note. The air was clear and crisp. We would meet up with Rick and Jerry Rink, the owner of Four Seasons Resort, located on the north end of Indian Lake. Jerry is also president of the local snowmobile club and would be our tour guide on some of the most scenic trails in the state. He agreed to take us around the lake to Palms Book State Park, home of one of this area's most intriguing attractions. In fact, Palms Book is designated as a state scenic area, so except for a summer boat launch, no sports or other recreation is allowed. But, as you will see, the trip to this remote area is one everyone should take. The Native Americans called it the Mirror of Heaven, Kitchity-Kippy, and believed its waters held mystical powers. How else could the still water not freeze during the legendary Upper Peninsula winters? Indian lore tells the story of a young maiden who dove into the water. She was transformed into a beautiful white deer. Some say you can still see the outline of a white deer on the rocks under the water. Now, of course, legends aside, we know that the Big Spring, as today's locals call it, is a natural mineral spring. In fact, this big spring is Michigan's largest, over 200 feet across. Another nice stop is at the not-so-well-known Rainy Wildlife Area. This spot is a classic example of an upper Michigan wetland. Just off of M94, down a dead-end road, is a parking area and the beginning of a boardwalk. Following this boardwalk through the woods and swamps takes you near to where Smith's Creek enters Indian Lake. Mounting an overlook platform provides a commanding view of the creek as it meanders north through the Great Manistique Swamp. A sharp eye can spot wildlife at almost any time of year, as Tom explains.
Well, I can certainly understand why they call this a wildlife area. We haven't actually seen anything yet, but we've seen a lot of tracks. Just down the trail that we've come down, we passed a deer run, a lot of deer going through there. The tracks look fairly fresh. You want to keep your eyes open. If you come back here, you might see a deer wander by. A lot of rabbit tracks around. We've got a tree right next to us here that the porcupines have been up and they're chewing away the bark on it that they use for food. You'll notice too, as we go along just up ahead here, we're going to take a look at a tree that has been marked. We'll find out what that's about. And we're also seeing some of the birdhouses that we've heard about that are out here. Now, we haven't seen any actual birds yet, but we're going to keep our eyes open, and with all the tracks around, we may see something. So let's go ahead on down the trail and we'll see what we find.
As the gang continues its snowshoe trek through the wilderness, they come across one of the birdhouses built by the Boy Scouts. Not a bird in sight, but as cold as it was, they were probably inside their little homes, or if they're smart, they went south for the winter. Now it was time to head to the top of the overlook. I wonder if the crew will take off their snowshoes for this climb. Well, I hope coming down is easier than going up. The view was worth the trip. We could see for miles in every direction. This is a trip worth taking no matter what time of year. It was time to move on, so we put our snowshoes back on and hit the trails, and before long, wouldn't you know it, Tom was thinking about food.
What do you guys think? This looks like a good spot for a picnic. Want to try it?
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
This gives you an idea what happens when you take the snowshoes off.
Hi, Shorty.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to worry about sitting down.
That must be a good spot for the fire.
Taking off their snowshoes to dig a fire pit in the snow, the gang prepares a picnic lunch. Now, this crew should be experienced, but with all the laughing going on, I wonder. Wait a minute, is that a fire I see? Why, it sure is. Tom, it looks like you'll have a warm meal after all. The Rainy Memorial Wildlife Area is a unique and extremely beneficial project for wildlife. It's the result of the joint efforts of the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, Michigan Conservation Foundation, and the private donors of the site and the family who proposed and funded the development of the memorial area. A few years ago, we met up with the Bjorkman family, Dick and Angie. They run a business specializing in giving folks the chance to experience an afternoon of old-time charm in the form of a horse-drawn sleigh ride. Now, it seems this little time machine has become a regular stop for the crews when they venture through this way, and so it was this past trip. Through the thickly snowed forests of Dickinson County, the team, complete with traditional sleigh bells, pulled a full complement of happy riders. We've learned that such thoughts as, "It couldn't get any better than this," rarely fly up here in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. That's because as soon as you think it, something comes along to make it better. And today was no exception. In this case, it was a frolicking lunchtime campfire in the middle of the woods. This is one experience we heartily endorse. If you've never relaxed to the sound of jingle bells and children's laughter, or felt the sensation of sleigh skis beneath your seat, do yourself a favor and make time for a real sleigh ride when you plan your trip. You'll discover sights and sounds you've only imagined. Now, speaking of different sounds, have you ever wondered what a man or woman flying through the air at 50 or 60 miles per hour would sound like? Well, it sounds like this. And the cheers reserved for these daredevils known as ski jumpers sounds like this. Welcome to Giant Pine Mountain, home of the world's largest artificial ski slide and the annual Intercontinental Cup ski jumping competition. Over 45 world-class ski jumpers from 13 countries around the globe have converged upon Iron Mountain, Michigan to challenge for the coveted International Cup. Where else have you gotten a view like this of an international ski jumping event? Ladislav Gluhas of the Czech Republic is at the top of the slide. Ladislav is one of the premier jumpers in the world. He was in first place after the preliminary round. And Gluhas lands a jump of 110 meters or 360 feet. Mike, Wes, and the Park Service personnel had finally reached Grand Island. The first stop on the island was at the old East Channel Lighthouse. This wood-framed lighthouse, now privately owned, was built in 1868 and allowed ships to use the Munising Harbor as a major harbor of refuge. Discontinued in use in 1913, it now stands weathering the fierce Lake Superior winters alone. Continuing along the shoreline, the brush-choked edge of Grand Island began exposing itself, revealing glimpses of rock protruding from its banks. Some of the rock layers had tilted and settled onto ledges, which in turn dropped several more feet onto another ledge until reaching the surface of the lake. Maple, birch, cedar, and hemlock trees all fought for position, seeking light and space to grow. The sandstone layers continued rising, forming steep cliffs that towered above us, with huge ice daggers clinging to the escarpment, some dripping from hidden seeps, others totally frozen in place. What incredible beauty! The sight of the ice formations had us spellbound. Pale hues of blue and green ice shimmered in the sunlight, beckoning closer inspection. The edge of Grand Island looked like nature's version of a multiple-layer wedding cake. A scenic wonderland? You bet. In fact, many cross-country skiers make the trek from the mainland to Grand Island to see these hanging ice sculptures. Many also bring with them packs for overnight stays of several days, and they really explore the island. Before leaving Grand Island, we had to stop the snowmobiles for a better look at the curtains of ice. Dwarfing our group, these vertical walls of opaque ice radiated subtle hues of color as the sun's rays reflected off them. We were told that as the temperature warmed, the character of the ice walls changed as well. In this way, these seemingly solid monoliths of ice were as dynamic as Lake Superior itself. Gazing back toward the mainland, we could see the same kind of forces at work shaping it, all a part of the Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. For the day's dog sledding, amateur style, we were introduced to Tyler Lagarde. Tyler helps with the dog sled activities at Gunflint Lodge.
Tyler, I'm going to go ahead and try this out.
Okay.
How about a few quick tips here to get me going, and what do I need to do? How do I want to control the sled?
Well, the most important thing to remember is don't let go.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're going to
Good
have
idea.
9 dogs tearing off down without you, and that's a bad thing.
Okay.
Just use the brake for, cornering and slowing down, and when you're going downhill, that helps you to keep the sled off the wheel dogs.
And he was off, and it looked like our suspicions were correct. These dogs are ready to run now. Tom was flying like the wind. After only a few minutes of mushing, we wondered if Tom could still enter that race. He was moving fast. Hey, Tom, remember, that thing has a brake. The smart ones, like Lisa, got out of the way the best way they knew how. We got the feeling that the dogs were driving this trip, and Tom was just along for the ride. But that didn't seem to diminish the smile on Tom's face. He was having a great time.
The last thing that just happened, I lost the sled. Now I had the brake on, which is a big prong thing that digs down into the snow. I thought it was down in good. I stepped off the top of it, and the dogs just pulled that right up and just took off down the trail. Fortunately, we had a couple of guys down there. They were able to grab the sled and stop the dogs. Now, of course, I got a mic in the sled with me. We're going to hope this goes right. We may end up dumping them. If you see the camera go floating through the air, you'll know what happened. But I think we're going to have a good ride. We're getting ready to start right now. And so if you're ready, we'll do it. Oop. Hang tight, you're not going with a great driver here. Dogs are kind of mellowing out for me a little bit, thank you dogs. Oh. Hold on. I got it. Oh. Up. You know, when you're watching other people do this, it looks simple, but I'm telling you what, there's nothing easy about it. Dogs are working hard. You know what? So am I. Up. Okay, we're going up a hill. That's why we're behind. Here we go. Well, I hope you enjoyed our winter trips from yesteryear. We had a great time doing them, and we had a great time watching them again today. Until next week, I hope you get out there and have your own great getaway.
Production of Great Getaways is made possible by Rocky's Great Outdoors, located in Burton, Michigan. Rockies carries a complete line of motorcycles, snowmobile, camping, and hiking gear, including canoes and kayaks. State Building Company, serving Mid-Michigan for over 50 years, with quality windows, insulation, roofing, and siding, including complete residential and commercial remodeling. Forward Corporation, operating over 30 complete convenience centers, motels, and restaurants across Northeast Michigan.